Ms. Marken.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. Snowpack conditions have continued to improve through the basin since our March meeting. In all relevant basins, we are above the median condition for this date. I have a map here that shows snowpack conditions as of the end of the day yesterday. That top basin is the Rio Grande headwaters in Colorado. Current conditions are about 107% of median. The basin directly below that is the upper Rio Grande in New Mexico. Conditions there, snowpack conditions there are currently 128% of median. The basin to the left of that is the 109% of median, and that's the San Juan Basin, the upper San Juan Basin where our San Juan Chama water comes from. And that blue dot at the bottom, that beacon of hope this year, the lower Rio Grande is 255% of median conditions. It's really good to see that lower basin so high above median condition because runoff from this basin doesn't contribute to New Mexico's Rio Grande compact delivery obligations. But this basin does melt off earlier than the others since the snow is at a lower elevation, and this basin generates a smaller proportion of the overall water supply than the headwaters in the upper basins. So it'd be nice to see some more accumulation further up north. And while snowpack and spring water supply conditions are more promising than they were a month ago, conditions are not as favorable as we saw last year. On the next slide, I have snowpack conditions on this date. So it says 4/7/2024, but it's actually 4/7/2023. So these were snowpack conditions on this date last year. And so as we can see, we're significantly below where we were in those other basins. So I think it's good to keep in mind that snowpack is not as favorable as we were seeing this time last year. I've included some of the snow telegraphs for the Rio Grande headwaters in Colorado. They show similar to what the other graph was showing, that we're above median, but still below where we were last year. That black line is where we are 2024. The green line is median conditions, and that purple line was 2023. I have the snow telegraph for the Rio Chama in the upper Rio Grande, and it's the same story there, above median but below where we were the year before. And then the final one is the lower Rio Grande, which shows we're above median and very close to where we were at this time last year as well. So the April 1 forecast, the streamflow forecast, has come out, and this forecast uses basin snowpack conditions that we were just discussing, soil moisture, and then other proxy conditions to estimate the potential flow volumes that could be observed at certain stream gauges in the basin for the period of March to July. I know March has already passed, but I wanted to compare the March flow forecast with the April, and for it to be apples to apples, I included the March to July forecast for both. These forecasts are updated monthly from January to May and are developed based on conditions that are observed on the first of the month. So on the left are snowpack conditions the forecasted conditions based on the 50% exceedance forecast from March through July. On the March 1 forecast for Lobatos, they were forecasting 77% of median inflows at that gauge. On the Rio Chama into El Vado inflow, 70% of median, and at Otoe gauge, 60% of median, and the Rio Jemez below Jemez Canyon was forecast to be 118% of median. And moving over to the April 1st forecast, so again, this took into consideration the snowpack conditions on April 1st. The Lobatos has gone up to, their forecast is showing 92% of, potentially a 92% of median inflow. Rio Chama at El Vado, 81%. The Rio Grande at Otoe has bumped up to 71%, and the Rio Jemez below Jemez Canyon Dam, 136%. So with the exception of the Rio Jemez, we are still seeing all of those forecasted inflows below median. So despite those those snowpack conditions look great, I think we can still expect a below average spring runoff. But I would like to emphasize that these are forecasted conditions, and they can vary greatly from what we actually end up observing. And that's due to the high level of uncertainty in future conditions that affect the magnitude and distribution and the duration of spring runoff. Forecasts are tools that are helpful for planning purposes, but they're not really intended to accurately predict the future. Moving on to Rio Grande compact conditions and storage conditions. New Mexico's Rio Grande compact debt at the end of 2023 is estimated to be 122,000 acre feet, which grew from 93,000 acre feet at the end of 2022. This sizable debt, combined with MRGCD's inability to store water in Elvado Dam, means in 2024 the MRGCD will likely be unable to store native Rio Grande water, which is water that is generated within the Rio Grande Basin and subject to the rules of the Rio Grande Compact. Without the ability to store native Rio Grande water, the only storage water available to the MRGCD this year will be its 2024 San Juan Chama allocation. San Juan Chama water is water that is imported from the San Juan Basin and not subject to the rules of the Rio Grande Compact, which means the MRGCD has a lot more flexibility with when and where this water can be stored. Based on current supply forecast, it looks like MRGCD will likely receive a full San Juan Chama allocation of 20,900 acre feet. This amount of water is a helpful management tool for the MRGCD, but it's not enough water to augment low river flows all summer in the Middle Valley if we do not receive any inflows from summer rainstorms. So what does all this mean for water supply for the MRGCD water users in 24? It means the Middle Rio Grande will likely see below average spring runoff. During that runoff, there will be enough water to meet irrigation demand. But when spring runoff is over, MRGCD will have to turn to releasing San Juan Chama water to augment available water supplies. Once MRGCD is out of its San Juan Chama water, we will be a run-of-the-river system, and our ability to meet irrigation crop demand will be very dependent upon river inflows from summer rainstorms. MRGCD farmers should expect limited irrigation deliveries this summer and fall, but if we see inflows from rainstorms, we'll deliver that to farmers as we're able to. Looking at current conditions, flows at the Otoe gauge, which is on the Rio Grande upstream of the Cochiti Dam, have decreased since the beginning of the month. That's due to Colorado starting their irrigation season on April 1st, and the cooler weather the cooler weather in the basin has experienced the past couple days. Flows at Otoe today are about 730 cubic feet per second. Combined with the 100 CFS entering the Middle Rio Grande from the Rio Jemez, we are comfortably meeting that 500 cubic feet per second needed to meet irrigation demand in the Middle Valley right now. Looking to the forecast, the National Weather Service puts out these seasonal temperature and precipitation outlooks. For April through June, most of the Rio Grande Basin is looking likely above average temperatures and below average precipitation. The National Weather Service does expect a transition from El Nino to La Nina conditions sometime in the April to June period, which typically means a warmer and drier winter in the American Southwest. The Albuquerque National Weather Service office is also reporting that they believe wind speeds will be below average in April and closer to average in May. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Director Sandoval, questions?
Yeah,